good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hot Seat on 933 KFM. I welcome you all listeners across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. I have seen the headline of the Daily Monitor today, Truth Every Day, is "Keep calm, roads are coming." And those are the words quoted from President Yoweri Museveni, who also gave a write-up or a letter explaining the state of the roads and saying things are going to be done one step by step, one at a time, and not spreading yourself thin, because if you do that, you'll end up not having much. And so we'll be focusing on the roads, situation of roads in Uganda in our discussion this evening. It's full house. On Wednesday, I have the entire panel with us. From the President's office, we have Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Byarhanga. Thank you so much for joining us, Moses. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening, Patrick. Our listeners out there and my colleagues in the studio.
From Uganda Management Institute, we have Professor Gerard Kareja Kagambirwa. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening.
Pleasure to be here.
And from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies, we have the farmer from Ntungamo, Mr. Godba Tumushabe. Thank you so much for joining us.
A very good evening to you all and our listeners.
And by the way, when I'm saying a farmer, it's good. It's not like I'm looking, some people, I know you're a very serious farmer. You have been engaging yourself in coffee and you're turning around the whole of Ntungamo. And that's a good thing. Apart from Tugume, you're the next big thing.
You do. Why not? Why not?
So yeah.
At least I'm adding my contribution to the Ugandan economy.
I come from Kengyogo. It is extremely disturbing nowadays to travel to Kyenjojo or Fort Portal. Most people actually have to go through areas of Umbarara or Yantonde, Kamwenge, Ishongoro, Kazo to Fort Portal, or you go through Kiboga, Hoima, Kagadi, Kyenjojo to Fort Portal. Why? Because the Matiana Mubende road is extremely bad. This has been bad for a long time, even though the earth movers and the caterpillars have been working there. They come for 2 months, they go away for 3, they come for 1 week, they go away for another 2 months. And yet that's the road that is taking even the Minister of Finance, it's taking the Prime Minister, it's taking many other people. That is the situation. But that could also speak of other roads. I do not know how you guys maybe are more lucky from Tungamu and within here. Probably you have read the President's letter, Professor or any one of you. Where do you think, because for a long time, road infrastructure we're doing so well, but now we see Uganda is trying to struggle in maintaining the roads or building new roads. What could be the problem, Professor?
I think there are a number of problems, but the major one is that we need to I think the major is about service delivery standards. And I read part of the President's statement. He's talking about the categorization of the roads and so forth. So one of them to me is the service delivery standards, the extent to which we adhere to standards when we're doing what we're supposed to do. 2, it may be right to raise the question of prioritization in planning, and maybe
prioritization of
because many things are competing for government attention and government money, but many times in Parliament when issues are raised, sometimes the listening is slow or the implementation defies the listening. So if we've just passed the budget and questions are being raised on the planning and the prioritization, then the question is who is not doing his job well. I think the President has made it clear that he has told the government and the ministry to go back and think about it. So that tells us that someone could have done better than they did when they were preparing the budget, and the responsiveness to the needs of the population. But also, we don't need to take it at its surface. We could look at it more broadly. Maybe also there were other priorities and directives that had come up earlier that we need to find out where the money went. The other issue is It may be a coincidence or they were sequential, but for the first time I saw the Daily Monitor have stories follow each other, and like as if there was a response to what was raised in a previous story that had 2 words as a headline. These days there's this fashion of 2 words. I think there was something like financial roadblock or money roadblock or something. Then now we see that that will not happen. The good thing is that we're in a season where the sensitivity of government is high, because we're moving towards the highest level of accountability, which is the elections. So the opportunity to respond quickly and swiftly on matters that are considered to be of a wider appeal or concern is high. The question is how fast, how best this can be done. One may also suggest that these could be some of the ramifications of RAPEX. So there is need also to find out and investigate whether these could be some of the ramifications of RAPEX and how best this can be overcome in the subsequent budgets. But for me, as a student of public administration and also as a citizen, the question is not so much in what has been stated, it's more in what is going to be done.
Okay, Mr. Godgoto Mushabe, you're a policy analyst. What could be, when we look at the execution of government programs nowadays, it seems to be slower, sometimes sloppy, but also the start of new, fresh programs is not at a space like they used to be. Do you think the government is broke?
I actually don't think it's the brokenness. I just think that the government is tired. You have you have a leadership that is tired from every dimension almost. So we are talking about roads. I really was I felt humbled listening to General Katumba Wamala in Parliament
today in Parliament.
Yes, reading road projects that have been suspended, those that have been put on hold. You really see a man who is completely not in charge. And you see, it happens, it cuts across many other sectors. You go in the education sector, you look at the schools that are basically near collapsing. It's very old, powerful schools. Most of those traditional schools now, it is the old boys that are coming in to save the situation. So, I mean, those roads, there are many roads that are really in bad shape. But the one that strikes me is, in Western Uganda is the road from Mbarara to Ishaka. And then from Mbarara to Ibanda.
You haven't driven on Michana?
No, I haven't driven on Michana. Exactly.
You don't know what you're talking about.
I actually tried to put a meeting in Fort Porto one time, and people said, no, we can't drive on that road. So I haven't driven on it. So me, I'm looking at the government that is tired, because you see, to run an efficient service delivery system, it's a system. You have to have a functioning system. A government operates like call it a closed circuit system that every piece ties into the other. So right now, what you see as basically isolated cases of functioning in terms of performance. So if you go, sometimes you go to Minister of Finance, you see they are very, very smart people working. You go to Minister of Finance at 7 a.m., there are people there working. I think some of you follow the driving permit. Mm-hmm. You go to URA, you go to Uganda Registration Services Bureau. These operate like isolated units where you can say there is excellence in performance. But when you go to the general government system, the slowness, the exhaustion, because I talk to many government officials at different levels. Some of them, they are very, very clear. Actually, they share with you. They say, no, for us now, you go to a government agency to do your things. to your office to do your things. Sometimes you are even looking for where to get some money. These are practical cases, and unfortunately, I think that the government doesn't have a reliable feedback mechanism to know that is the kind of exhaustion that has set in the public service, and we are seeing that effect. And even, by the way, even when you read the president's letter, that's exhaustion, because you can't explain things for 40 years, my friend. After 40 years, you are explaining, and now the president's mantra is that, hey, you have to do small, one by one. Man, you are talking of 40 years. You are totally exhausted, and that is showing in the way the system operates.
Mr. Moses Biaranga, probably have had the diagnosis of Mr. Godbert Mushabe. If that's the case, what would be the prescription, do you think?
You see, Godbert gives a poor diagnosis. If it was a patient, a doctor-patient relationship, that patient would be in trouble. By giving such a wrong diagnosis. You see, you're talking about 40 years. When you come about road sector in 40 years, in those 40 years, but by 1962, when we got independence, let's be clear, Uganda had 855 kilometers of roads. By 1986, Uganda had 1,000 kilometers of roads. And those 1,000 kilometers of roads, many of them were in a poor state. 1,000. So today, in the 40 years, Uganda has 6,300 kilometers of roads, of tarmac roads, not only road, tarmac roads.
6,000.
6,000 and 6,300 in 40 years. So when Godbert talks of, he's saying, oh, in 40 years, as if I've done nothing. But what was it before? And Uganda, as Uganda, is more than 40 years old. Today, how many? When we celebrated the last Independence Day was when?
We should be like 63 now.
So all the roads that you can see, we talk about now, have been done in those 40 years. The majority of them, in those 40 years. Notwithstanding that old ones have been rehabilitated, there were very few. The 1,000 kilometers of roads. So. Yes, the president's message is saying that that when he chose to work on roads, he made sure that today all the major towns in Uganda, the major towns are connected by tarmac. Now you mentioned like the few cases like Mitiana, Mubende, and that's not a very long portion. Remember, it's a new road because within those 40 years it has deteriorated because it wasn't there before as a tarmac road. You know that very well. So, but as you mentioned, you were talking about that if you want to go to Kenjojo by tarmac, you have to go to Hoima goes to Kagadi to Kenjojo. Oh, that is tarmac. For me, who comes from Bunyoro, the tarmac from Kampala stopped at Busunju, 50 kilometers from Kampala. Or if you went on the Gulu Road, it stopped at Kafu. But today, you can go from Kampala to all the towns in Bunyoro on tarmac. That's what the main achievement. It's a very big achievement. So, so I'm happy. I'm happy when you're even talking that if you want to go to Kenjo now without that disturbance of Mitiana, Mubende, you can go through all that way, and all that is tarmac. Ooh, congratulations. Okay. Now, if you go to now today, if you go to all the cities. We have now 10 cities other than Kampala. All of them have good tarmac roads. The town roads in those cities. Go to Fort Potro, go to Mbarara, go to Hoima, go to Lira, go to Guru, go to Jinja, go to Mbale, go to Soroti, go to Moroto. For the first time, Karamoja never had a tarmac road. Today you can move from Soroti out to Karamoja the Borot on the Tamaka Road. They're also doing the other one from through Sironko. Down through Sironko up to Nakapipirit, that side. And they were mentioning down for BIM. So, yes, now that the Tamaka Road sector has expanded, the issues are maintenance and, of course, starting a new one. So, right. the one you talk about through Kenjojo, there's a contract on the road. But the issue of supervision, so that could be another matter. But there's not that the government is broke, it has failed to put the contractors to the road to do their job.
Contractor works 2 weeks and is off 2 months. Gentlemen, we're going to take a break, and we'll mega milk break, and the hot seat will be right back. Welcome back. We're back on air, gentlemen. Welcome back to the hot seat. Professor Jared Karija, Mr. Moses Byarhanga, and Mr. Godbert Mushabe. You know, Professor, there is I think, a mismatch between the policy and the practice. When you look at what the policies of Uganda are, the programs, the projects, they're extremely good. But then when you look at the practice, we get very wobbly. Why is it that we normally see a mismatch? The good policy does not match the practice.
It depends on what you define as a policy.
Well, for example,
in public policy, we say what a policy is what government does or does not do.
Or decides not to do. Yeah.
And the effect that has. So, broadly, when
for example, they will set out to say we're going now to revamp the Kampala road infrastructure, and maybe even the money is given.
Those are pronouncements.
Or no, sometimes even the contract is signed.
Those are statements.
And then it will take forever. When it comes to practice, it will take forever.
Policy is measured in what government does. Because the basic idea of a policy is that policy is a solution to a problem.
Yeah.
And a problem that is of public value and public interest, meaning that it affects many people. Like now we are discussing roads, we are discussing the health system, the education system, and governments are in place, as Moses and the president rightly put it, to diagnose the problem and get appropriate prescription or solutions. So it's not very healthy to focus on policy documents and pronouncements and statements alone when you're measuring service delivery. Because for the average population, the person is saying this: there's something I cannot do alone, there's something we cannot do as a group, and therefore we have agreed that there is a state. And since the state is in place, let it tax us, let it borrow money on our behalf. But since it cannot do those things without supervision and guidance, whoever has a superior manifesto be in charge of government and do that on our behalf. So the citizen wants or sees policy in that which is being done to improve their well-being, increase their opportunities, and make things better. But of course, what we wanted to say is that we have good policy documents, and maybe policy implementation has challenges. There are many explanations. Disposition of those who are in charge. It can be what we call an implementation gap. Those who are doing the policy are not at par with those who designed it, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, the ultimate test is in what is being done and how it is being done, and what is not being done. Actually, even if what is not being done is not consciously thought about, for as long as it has not been done, then that's government policy. So, for us students of policy, and for us citizens, we judge government policy on the delivery of services, regardless of the laws, the policy documents, the statements, the budgets.
You want to say something tangible, something visible, something that is helping.
Yeah.
Governance is doing.
Okay, well, if that's the case, Mr. Byarhanga, what explains, for example, that money or a grant from the World Bank is given to an entity, a local government, or a city like Kampala, and sometimes contracts are signed for revamping or rehabilitating the roads. And even when it is just a 5-kilometer road, it will take forever. For example, the road you know best, because almost every Wednesday we have had an opportunity to see you, which you to use the 8th Street. It's only been fixed now, but it's taken a long time.
Well, first of all, some of it, part of the challenge is inefficiency in some of the government departments. There's no doubt about it. Like this.
What about gold tiredness?
No,
you want to call it inefficient?
Yeah.
So
It's the same thing.
They said in some of the government departments, if you look at the Kampala, government has secured a loan from ADB. There are different projects, but one of this on 8th Street is one of those projects where I'm asking the engineer in chief or the top engineer in KCCA, they were saying that why the money was secured long ago. In fact, the time of when engineer Kitaka was acting ED, this many years ago. When they advertised the roads, they gave one contractor a lot with many roads, and then you'd find that that engineer or that contractor will not do all of them at the same time. This is some like 2 or 4 months ago. I was talking to the ED at KCCA and some part of her team. Then our road, Salama Road, is about 9 kilometers. So when I asked one of the engineers, I said, how long will it take to complete the road? He said 3 years. I said, 3 years? What are you talking about? I had never heard from the engineer Samba Gonza, who retired from being a government chief engineer, that it takes about 1 month to do 1 kilometer. Then when we were in that meeting at KCCA, I called the acting chief engineer, Minister of Works, Engineer Stephen Kitonsa. I asked him, said, engineer, if one wants to do a 10-kilometer road, how long will it take? He said, 1 year. But here an engineer in KCCA was saying, oh, that one we expected in 3 years. Now for them, it doesn't matter if a 9-10-kilometer road is taking 3 years, why it should have taken 1 year, because they gave a lot to one contractor to complete it in 3 years. So it was that one, there must have been inefficiency in awarding of those contracts. Otherwise, most of these roads you see in this company, which are being worked on like a street, if they had been given to individual contractors to do one and finish and all of them given different contractors at the same time, they would be finished by now, long ago. So that was the fish I'm talking about. But the government has secured the money. But today, there is now the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Project, which is going to construct 293 kilometers within Greater Kampala. That's Kampala and part of Wakiso and some parts of Mukono. So far, 142 kilometers have already been contracted out of the 293. So, and those ones have not been, they have been given to individual contractors. So I expect the work to be much better, and in a shorter period, we shall see in a year or two, most of Kampala and Wakiso will have clean roads. In my earlier submission, I was telling you, in those 40 years, if today you went to Acholi, in the past, most of them didn't have tarmac roads apart from the Kampala Gulu Road. The tarmac stopped in Gulu, but now from Gulu through up to Atiak up to Nimule, now they're working on Atiak up to Ajumani side, so the country has been opened up in terms of tarmacing roads. Now the challenge has been, as the president was mentioning in the letter, around 2006, 2007 there, the government expenditure on roads increased because we were totally bad off. Now it's just maintenance of those roads. And if you look at the roads connecting major towns, other than the one we talked about, the Kampala Kenjojo, which has a contractor, and they are now speeding up work, most of the areas are connected. Now the issue is doing new smaller roads within the area. For instance, in Kayunga, we are going to tarmac the road, and the contract has already been signed from Kayunga to Bali up to Galiraya. Those are now inner roads. Otherwise, the ones connecting most of the cities or towns in Uganda are now tarmac. The most important issue is now maintaining them so that they don't deteriorate, and also maintaining the the Malam roads in good condition, both the district, what you call district roads and what you call the community roads in the countryside. Yeah.
You know, good, but sometimes I wonder, because government can borrow money to do a project for a specific need that you think is good for the public, but then the year passes and something is not done. Sometimes they say there's lack of absorption capacity. Sometimes it could be inefficiency, but money is borrowed, and I'm sure the interest is picking up. And like Moses is saying, they can give so many lots to one individual, and then that person is slowed down. Is that somebody probably who eats some kind of a commission because a loan is given and we're not ready, but somebody's taking off a cut?
I've said this is really tiredness. Because you see, I think one of the things, these Moseses and their boss, they have done many incredible things. Very.
First time you're acknowledging.
No, it's not my first time. I talk about this quite often. They are great things that the President Museveni has done. I have argued time and again that when you look at the president's record, the worst thing that he has done to this country is to lower the imagination of our people. So even when you listen to Moses explaining, these guys can explain problems. Instead of solving problems, they explain them. So when you go to the road sector, you'll find Moses has told you that we are now at 6,300 roads. Kilometers of tarmac. So if you do an average, which we do in academia, that would mean that on every year for the last 40 years, we've been adding 157 kilometers of of tarmac road on our paved road network. That's what it would mean. And incidentally, very interesting, it's very consistent with the data that I've been collecting on roads. I have here some data. Between 2011 and 2015, we were adding 147.2 kilometers of paved roads on our road network. So that's per year. But what is interesting is that the Vision 2040, we are projecting that we should reach almost 119,840 kilometers of paved road network by 2040. That's the target for Vision 2040. If you take the rate at which Moses is explaining to our listeners, which is 157 kilometers per year, you would need 772 years to reach 200,000 kilometers. Now, a government that adds only 157 kilometers of tarmac every year, there is a problem there. Because it's like there is no sense of urgency. And by the way, even when we talk about these connecting districts, that's a good thing, but that's not how you transform an economy.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a mega milk break. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight, I have Mr. Godbert Mushabe, Mr. Moses Biarhang, and Professor Jared Kadija. Moses, I'm sure you had, by the calculation of Mr. Godbert Mushabe, if the government worked at that rate to be able to achieve your vision of 2040, you actually need to increase the vision to 20 what? 2700. Because you need 700 years.
Godba is an educated person who uses the knowledge of logic to mislead people and make
maybe it's mislead you.
Are you an evil genius?
So because see, for him, of course, he's just like an academic, just saying, okay, because you have done so many kilometers in this period, so you are calculating an average. But you see, if you one who is genuine enough, in the first years of 86 up to maybe around 2000, when we were still having war, for instance, in northern Uganda, security was the one which was taking the big chunk of the budget. We're not doing any roads, any major road activity at the time. So, but God presumes that from 1986, you had this money budget which you were spending on roads. So along the way, this is what you have done. Fine, you can use that academic line, but it is very misleading because the fact will be anybody who is factual will do. If you're good research, will say no. Within this period, you wouldn't expect things to have happened the way they happened. In the president's letter, which we explained. He said that during that because we were depending mainly on donor funding, donors will say, "Oh, we are going to do." They will take like 4 years to complete the funding process before even from the feasibility study, then looking for money, blah 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 blah, until around 2006. President said, "No, since we had more or less finished the war in the north. Let's now concentrate on the road sector." And that's why the road started taking a big chunk of the budget. And in that short period, from around 2026 to today, that's why we have been able to do the majority of those kilometers of roads. So don't go, if you want to calculate how much have you done per year, probably you should start around 2006 to date, which is the shorter period than if you look at the entire period. But that notwithstanding, I think the most important thing here has been when we concentrated on the roads, our president saying, we did a lot of work. But in the last 2 or 3 years, there was the budget of works came down. We're saying, we need to look at this and make sure that we concentrate on maintenance and start new projects, which, as mentioned, we are going to start. This year, I think they are starting about 5 or 6 new road projects, big ones. And of course, most of our road projects take around 3 to 3.5 years. So in the next few years, we are going to see the number of kilometers of roads increasing. I was also mentioning during the break that as I say, we have completed, we have 6,300 kilometers of roads. That doesn't include the ones under construction, because that one is counted when it has been completed and handed over to government. During the period when it is still under construction, like now, this one we are talking about East Street. East Street has not yet been handed over to government. So, but you, when you Katakamaru, you are driving on it, you see it as the completed road. So that one is not counted among the 6,000 kilometers of completed roads.
But out of 6,300 kilometers of paved roads, how much do we have that is not paved? How big? How many kilometers are we talking about? Just to know the percentage of what is paved and what is not.
The unpaved is much bigger. I can check during the break on my phone, but the unpaved is much bigger than the paved. That's a fact.
Professor Kadija, there seems to be a commitment now. The roads are coming, and the president is saying, yes, we're going to do that, but also we are in a period of campaigns. So sometimes what is talked at during campaigns may also change after the campaigns. So should we take this with a pinch of salt?
You want me to repeat? Policy is what is done,
okay,
not what is said. But also in terms of, if you want to go technical, there are also some technical challenges that we have. I had the opportunity to facilitate the strategy, the resource enhancement and accountability program, which is the strategy that monitors the public finance management. And there are a number of inconsistencies and incoherencies that RIPS is trying to manage in terms of how to process money in this country. I am also aware, because of the work that I do, that currently now when the strategic planning process is going on in government, this time there is emphasis on having clear project implementation action plans. They are calling them PIAPs, and also service standards, which are emphasized by the Ministry of Public Service. Now, again, because I've now chosen to take the technical angle, there's what we call post-legislative scrutiny. When Parliament scrutinizes things, how does it know that their decisions have been done? That is almost non-existent. I recently did an OCA, an organizational capacity assessment of our accountability committees in Parliament. and we have strong deficiencies.
I like the way you are mitigating and calling them deficiencies.
So the point I'm trying to make is that we are also having a number of, other than the political question, we have a number of structural challenges. It's like, I'm just going to use an analogy. It's like sometimes trying to play a cassette. You remember those cassettes you would done with a pen?
The pen, yeah.
And sometimes you're trying to fit it into where there is supposed to be an USB. So until we have that interconnectedness of processes, because that's why if we go by the president's statement, you cannot have cabinet sat, every agency, the government, actually we are about to start the government budgeting process for next financial year. It begins in September with a budget called Satura and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's systematic, and Uganda actually has one of the most open general budget processing, and even information is out there. It is on the websites and so forth. But after that systematic cycle, immediately government is talking to its budget that, wait a minute, why did you kumemera instead of?
Yeah.
So there is a disconnect.
Disconnect, yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's part of, at the technical level, that has also to be cured.
Okay, so which takes us to, it has taken long, the president to understand there's Project Kumemera.
The president is the president. Actually, it has not taken him long. For him, he knows what he's doing. The president does politics. This is a campaign season, so every time there is a campaign, he actually externalizes the problem. If you want to go back to 2011, he had a tough campaign season. That's when he basically campaigned NADS. He abandoned the NADS and campaigned against it. If you had the president campaigning in 2011, you would think he's an opposition candidate. Talk about how NADS had failed. You know that then he brings in Operation Wealth Creation. So basically, for him, you write this letter because he knows people are going to be asking him all these roads because they have collapsed. So he has to externalize and explain the problem. Because you see, at the center of this discussion, because when you talk to the policy people, you feel there is some significant clarity on what needs to be done. Then you realize, then you ask, but why then don't you do it? It is just not so long ago. I was asking someone in one of the ministries. I say, how does it happen that a road like Mbarara Ishaka falls into a state of disrepair, and yet you are the same government? That a road collapses slowly by slowly until you have nothing left, and then you are going to start explaining Kumemera namna gani. So there is a dysfunction, and the president needs to own, because you see, the president can't keep on explaining things. No, he is the chief executive officer. The buck stops with him. So, because you see, if I am the president, and you are my minister of transport and works,
and thank God you will never be one.
You never know, Moses, because you never knew that your boss would be a president. Please, you need to be modest sometimes.
You have ambitions?
Yeah? Yes, I have ambitions. I have ambitions because I qualify as a Ugandan. Yeah? So you need to be modest. Sometimes there is nothing to lose by being humble, by being modest. The problem with all these NRM people, the Moses, is the power has entered into their heads. Mm-hmm. They think that they are the Alpha and Omega.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah? And we have seen all regimes like theirs, from Gaddafi to Mubarak to Bashir. They have all collapsed. So, my friend, you need to be humble. Yeah, so bottom line is bottom line is that the buck stops with the president. He cannot continue explaining away problems, he needs to fix them.
Okay, Moses, the point I'm going to pick from Mr. Godber's submission is, yes, the president seems to have seen there is this Kumemera, or maybe doing so many small things everywhere. But when Honorable Kasaija is presenting a budget, he's presenting it on behalf of the president. So,
but
so this is his program. This is his policy. He's the one who's been the Kumemera because he could have stopped it.
The Kumemera is talking about is that is he talking to the both Ugandans and also the public service who do. When you look at sometimes when some sectors don't prioritize enough and say, well, what should we do first? And in that letter he tells you that until around 2006 when he said no, let's prioritize roads and do the roads, and that was done. In many other sectors, you find there was like lack prioritization. They get a budget, they are doing so many things at the same time. Instead of doing, for instance, you can talk about health sector and say, but here you are saying this hospital doesn't have an MRI, like especially some of the region of the Faro, but you are talking of building another health center. And then you say, but why don't you concentrate the ones which are there, equip them enough before you build new ones? Sometimes you overspread when you are basically doing just ghost buildings there without being able to, like in health centers, without putting the equipment. But then you have some which are already finished, but you don't have no equipment. But then you're creating new ones. So that's what the president is guiding government. That please, let's concentrate.
Guiding his government.
Yeah, you have to guide your government. That's why your president doesn't work alone.
No, he needs to make decisions, not to guide. He needs to take decisions.
Still, you don't make decisions alone. You make decisions with the others. That's why otherwise it will be just be a one-man show. But that's why there are sectors, there are permanent secretaries, there are undersecretaries, there are commissioners, there are everybody. So all that is being told that let's prioritize, let's learn prioritize. It's a good message for everyone. And back to Godber's earlier submission, saying that when you talk of 6,300 kilometers completed, I was just checking here, about 1,200 new road projects are under construction, new, and another 800 kilometers of old roads are being rehabilitated. So you're basically talking about you are on top of the 6,000. Soon, when these ones are completed, you will add another 2,000 kilometers of roads. That's not something simple, but now in Kumemera saying that the budget of works, especially road sector, has come down. We need to up it again to ensure that these roads which have been constructed, they are well maintained. We don't have a breakdown like he's talking about Mbarara Bushenyi Road, which is an old tarmac road but needs the rehabilitation because it has not been well maintained. So the other issue is that as the economy is growing, the capacity to raise funds to work on more roads, on other projects other than roads, is also growing. Okay. Because you have a growing economy. Even if you get the oil money coming in, which was also supposed to go for infrastructure projects, you have on its own economy is growing, meaning if you get more revenue, you're able to do more things at the same time.
Okay, this is how we're going to conclude. There are two issues I think we need to look at. And just to mention, as you say your concluding remarks, by the way, the High Court will deliver its ruling on the bail application for Dr. Kizza Besigye on Friday this week. So Justice Emmanuel Baguma today spent the whole day listening to the, I think, closing arguments. KB and Lulitade have now been in detention for over 2 hours.
Are you reading in news? Are you reading in news?
No. I'm trying to bring our conclusion. I'm trying to bring it. You know, we're a news organization. It's always good to
wait for news at 8.
Breaking news.
Even then, but also we have lost a very iconic Ugandan in the name of Mr. Garuga Musinguzi. So probably you've known him or probably have heard of him. As you make your concluding remarks, what do you remember of the man? And the last word from you, Professor.
Yeah, I'll begin with where you ended. My condolence to Musinguzi Garuga. He's actually, at a personal level, my brother marries a daughter of his younger brother, so he's our in-law. our sincere condolence. But at national level, I think he's one of those who have been a symbol of entrepreneurship, and also he made a very big contribution to the political discourse in this country, initially as an NRM agent and ideologue, and later also in strengthening multi-party politics, especially his work in FDC, and finally in another space. He told me a number of stories about the NRM struggle, and one of them, the role my mother played some time back.
Oh, your mother was a...
I never knew that side of her.
Was a fighter.
I never knew that side of her. But in terms of the Chiza Besigye case, let's wait for what comes out. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that we should pick lessons from all our previous electoral cycles and ensure that this time round we do it better.
Okay. Mr. Moses Byarhanga, your parting shot?
Well, about the late Msingu Zigaraga, I knew him personally on the political side, but also on the economic side. I think he spearheaded the spread of tea growing in Ichigezi sub-region. In most of that, or the Ankole area, there was a lot of tea growing in the old Bushenyi, Greater Bushenyi, but Msingu Zigaraga started the projects in Kanungu, in Kawal area, Kisoro, and so forth. So, and they set up factories also there, new tea factories, working with the government system, notwithstanding his political views, but he worked with the government closely. The late Keith Makanis, at that time when he was the Prime Secretary of Finance, they linked up much with him to spread tea growing in that area. So I remember him, apart from the politics, on that economic front.
All right, thank you. And goodbye. 30 seconds, your parting shot.
Yeah, really. My deepest condolences to the Garuga family. Yeah, Msingu Garuga, basically he has been a very, very close personal friend of mine. We would normally meet. He had his spot at Piatto restaurant. We would meet there, discuss, share, drink, and, you know, a man full of wisdom and business acumen. So definitely as a country, we've lost someone who has really who has done things that have impacted on individual people's life. I think there is a lot that is there to emulate in the way he has lived his life and done and made a contribution to this country.
Mr. Godbat Mushabe, Mr. Moses Byarhanga, and Professor Gerard Kareja, gentlemen, thank you so much. It is interesting to know each one of you knew the late Garuga at a personal level. And that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of the Hot Seat. Good night and God bless you.